I wanted to share with some thoughts with you on the seventh day of Christmas. Some thoughts I had already shared at Christmas Eve when so many of us were gathered on the parking lot. But for those who couldn't be with us, and for those who didn't hear the recording on Christmas Eve at the streaming service, I thought I'd reflect a little bit further on some of my ideas. I have a new pandemic habit now that I've started into in the past few months. 9:20 every weekday morning, I go downstairs and turn on the TV with my cup of coffee and I watch Al Roker and his friends. They chat for about 15 minutes about what they had for dinner and what they're reading in the newspaper and just general conversations about life. I see the inside of their houses sometimes. They talk about their health and their family. It seems real. It seems like an important relationship and part of a community that I am intrigued by and just wondered about. I think it's part of where we are in our lives that we're longing for relationships, for connecting with people after almost nearly 10 months of being separated for social distancing, and isolation is setting in even deeper as the winter gets longer. So those moments on the weekday mornings when I hear about other people's lives and just a sense of normalcy appeals to me. Perhaps it appeals to you when you think about normal things: coffee with friends, a walk on the beach, time with loved ones, longing to hug people that you can no longer hug because you need to be separated, family vacations and vacation with friends, a trip to the movies, just a dinner out with friends and family. So many things that we've taken for granted and so many things that we long for and that we miss in these days of keeping each other safe and loving our neighbor and ourselves. I think that this longing for relationship is deeply embedded in humanity. And the very first story in creation, when we hear about humankind being created, God created Adam and then realized that Adam needed a companion, someone to walk alongside him for the rest of his life. And so God created Eve so Adam would never be alone. Again, it's a fundamental understanding of who we are as a people and our natural instincts not to be alone, but to be with others, to share sorrows and grief and happiness and joy. And the happiness and joy that comes this week in Christmastide and this 12 days of Christmas is the birth of Jesus Christ, one of the most important relationships for us Christians to celebrate. After all, Jesus came down as a newborn baby into the arms of a loving mother and a father who built a relationship of over 30 years of love and care and possibly all sorts of conversations and things that we don't know about, but we know that Jesus came down as the most vulnerable of beings to this earth, given by God for us, so that God could experience those relationships that we have. And when Jesus began his ministry, he chose disciples to walk alongside him, to be with him, to be his friends and companions, knowing that the journey was tough and that being together would strengthen him, even as they challenged him in his ministry and his stories and his parables. He knew that he was never alone. His relationship with his mother, we see throughout the gospel message, one of challenges and one of love and one of hope and despair. And Mary Magdalene, his friend, who, again, he helped to bring to a healing and to a new life and to friendship. And then Jesus met, of course, and created relationships with sinners and outcasts and those who are on the edges of society, those who needed healing, those others wouldn't have community with. And so that model of relationship is part of who we are, that loving sense of being together with others, being together with those we love, being together with friends and family, being in relationship with people who are different from us, but who all share the same humanity. And at the last, when Jesus was on the cross, his thought was with his mother, who would bear that personal relationship when he was gone from this earth. And he turned to his beloved disciple and said, essentially, take care of my mother, because when I'm no longer here, she'll be alone. And yet the promise of Jesus Christ's birth and death and resurrection was that we would never truly be alone, that God was with us in all the relationships, that Jesus had came to give us the promise that the relationships we have here on earth would continue in eternal rest. For those who are mourning the loss of loved ones this year or in years past, we know that those relationships can never end, that those relationships still flourish in our hearts and that those we love are at peace with God in gentle rest. That's the promise of Christmas morning. That's the promise of Jesus Christ walking alongside of us. Dolly Parton has this wonderful quote. Dolly has done so much for the world, particularly this year in the pandemic. She's made so many donations to the vaccine development and so many other ways to literacy and helping young people be educated. One of her quotes that really struck me this Christmas season was, she said, "God and I have a special relationship, but we see other people." What it tells me is that she knows that God loves her and that they're in an important, loving relationship, and it's special and unique for the two of them. But those relationships that we have with our friends and family are also unique and special, and that we need to be with them and be in care of those people. And even as we're separated by time and space right now in the midst of this pandemic, we know that those relationships can be still strong and powerful through technology, through reaching out, through card writing, through communicating, and through prayer to God, intercessory prayer for those who are on our hearts and in our minds. And that in the midst of it all, that God is with us, that those relationships that we have built that carry us through our days and where we celebrate the joys of our lives, that the love that God has shared in His Son, Jesus Christ, is shared amongst us. And so as this Christmas season continues, as we await the Epiphany on January 6th, my hope and prayer is that you have strong relationships with those God has placed in your path, that you have a deepened relationship with God in the form of Jesus Christ, who came to love us and walk amongst us, and that you build relationships with people who are different from you, who have different lifestyles, who have different experiences, and are also beloved children of God, and that those relationships, modeled by Jesus Christ, inspire us and inform us in the year ahead. May God bless you, and may you have a holy and wonderful new year.